I'm sorry, our other tape got cut off. Let me go back here to trans fats. We were just kind of going over the history of it. It was synthetically made in the early 1900s. Actually, Wilhelm Norman is the creator of it. It was used as a replacement for like industrial companies to add to their food and stuff to make it more flavorful. And it was created, the big process is hydrogenation. So you'll also hear trans fats referred to as hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated. So the big thing about them are it's a liquid oil, and it's hydrogenated and it turns it to solid. So what do you find trans fat in a lot? Do you know what like one of the first foods was that?
Potato chips?
No, Crisco.
Oh, I thought you were talking about.
Like lard, yeah, basically synthetic lard. Oops, sorry. Synthetic lard. So Crisco was one of the first manufactured foods. Contained trans fats, and so about 1980s, people started figuring out trans fat was really bad for you, and I'm going backwards. Sorry. So it started kind of a little evolution of it becoming the bad staple. But in the 1940s, trans fat, these synthetic made fats were used a lot. Can you think of like a reason why they would start in the 1940s? I have it on here, but it's because World War II started and people had to start rationing their butter and stuff. So they create margarine, and that becomes a cheaper staple and alternative. So the margarine use increases. So by 2006, I skipped, a little bit, but they started figuring out trans fat was really bad. It was really, not very good for the heart. But in 2006, the FDA stated that all nutrition and fat and labels had to have how much trans fat was in a serving of food. So now you'll see it on all your food labels. In 2007, the American Heart Association started the Face the Facts Foundation. It's an education program. It's a really good resource. You can go on there. They'll do quizzes, and they'll also have what kind of fats are in your restaurant foods. All the oils, what percentage of trans fats are in oils. What are good alternatives instead of using just staple vegetable oil. A lot of restaurants are trying to go trans fat free now. So you'll see that, like Chick-fil-A is a good example. They'll put on there they're using canola oil, and it's a lot less trans fat because it's a better oil to use. And trans fats are just easy, and they make food taste better, and they're inexpensive. So, of course, you're going to have the food industry, adding them to our foods because they want to sell a good product. They can raise your LDL, which is your bad cholesterol level, and they can lower your HDL, which is your good cholesterol levels. And it also increases one's, risk of developing heart disease and stroke. Just some foods with trans fats, margarine, shortening, all of our processed baked goods, pastries, pie crust, cookies, crackers, donuts, anything fried. So pretty much everything that tastes delicious. The really good way to eliminate trans fats is to just read your nutrition labels. To identify, it'll specify your fats in there, and look for partially hydrogenated oils on your label. The best thing to do is replace trans fats with unsaturated fats, which I'll go over in just a second. The American Heart Association recommends that we eat less than 1% of trans fats per day. So basically, they don't want you eating any. So if you take in 2,000 calories per day, 20 calories should be from trans fats. That's less than 2 grams a day. And I brought as an example like cake mix and frosting. frosting. So 2 tablespoons of frosting is a serving. And so how many grams of trans fat do you think is in this nice little serving of chocolate?
A bunch.
Rich chocolatiness.
I'd say 400.
2 grams. And they want you to have less than 2 grams per day if you eat 2,000 calories. So, if you take this, and then take the cake, and you have your serving of cake mix. This has 1 gram. This one's actually pretty low fat. It doesn't say on here that it's trans fat free, but it doesn't. But it does have saturated fat. So most foods that you're going to get are processed. They're double whammy because you're getting saturated fat and trans fat. So that's why they tell us to eat these foods sparingly, and they're at the top of the food pyramid. So now I'm just going to do a little review over unsaturated fats. There's just 2 categories. There's the monounsaturated fats, and their little carbon atoms in their chemical chain are bonded with 2 little bonds in between them. So they're not as saturated with hydrogen atoms like the saturated fats. And these are liquid at room temperature, but they can be solid when chilled. A good measure of fat, thinking of fats, is the worse the fat, they're going to be more solid, especially when chilled, and the better fats are liquid, even if cold. So that's the way. Some sources of this is olive, peanut, canola, sunflower, and sesame oil. Avocados are really rich in unsaturated fat, peanut butter, nuts, and seeds. So we should replace our saturated and trans fats with foods out of this category. Now, peanut butter is one you do have to watch for, because if you just buy Jif or something like that, you're going to have trans fat in it. So the best way to go is to buy your natural peanut butters. And if which is basically just a little salt. The Smucker's brand has less than 1% salt. So that's a good brand to use. And you can sweeten it up with some Splenda or something. Then we'll go to polyunsaturated fats. These are liquid at room temperature and when chilled. So they're a little even better. And this is what everybody's talking about being your omega-6 and omega-3 fatty acids. So these are, these are the really good fats. Salmon and soybean and corn oil, high-fat fishes such as herring, trout, and then walnuts and sunflower seeds are also good sources of this. So just some tips, with your fats in general. You just want to remember that all fats contain 9 calories per gram. Only 25 to 35% of your daily calories should come from fat. So then you need to break that category down to your less than 1% from trans fat and your 7% from saturated fats. So the rest of that needs to come from your poly and mono unsaturated fat. Always read your food labels. And a good way to remember to try to cut out these high-fat foods and high-salt foods is to, I call it shop around the perimeter at the grocery store. Leave the middle alone because it's all processed. So your fruits and vegetables and your meats. And a lot of red beef and stuff like that is high in saturated fat. So that's why you should limit your intake. You still need red meat, but limit it to twice a week. And these are just some references. A good source to go to is the American Heart Association if you have any questions. Any questions? Okay, thank you.